together to make our chord progression. I'm going to resample these down into one audio track. Now that I have these in one track, I can go into the envelope, switch this from gain to transposition. Then on the end here, I can click and we can pitch these down a little bit on the end so you get something like. Then on the second one, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to pitch this one up 5 like this, Option Shift to curve. Then for the third one, pitch it down 5 like the first one. Then I'm going to leave the end normal. Then I'm going to put a plate reverb on this. And I'm going to low cut this a bit, then add another reverb after that, also low cut this one. And then for this one, we're going to turn the mix down all the way. And we're going to automate the mix to come in on the ends where we have those pitch bends. So kind of just like this. And maybe we have the reverb start from a little earlier on. Maybe the first and the third it has it early on. Now maybe the fourth one, we have it come maybe even earlier actually. And maybe we also have it low cut even more. Then I'm going to use Echo Boy just to glue these all together with a cool effect like chorus tank. So let's hear how this sounds now. Now we're going to duplicate this, freeze and flatten this one. Then I'm going to add a vector delay to this. And it's a little intense if I have it up high, but mixed down, it's pretty cool. And if I still want it to be kind of random, what I can do is add an LFO to this. And then I can map this to the mix knob, and I can make our waveform be random. And then I can turn the depth down. Then I can add another LFO, and I can map this to our rate knob. And I can set this one to random as well. Freeze and flatten that down to audio again so I can save those effects on there. Now I'm going to add auto pan to this, and we can make this bounce a bit. I'm going to put this on the 16th note, phase 0, offset 180. And if we want this effect drastic, I can turn it up a lot. Or I can turn it down and have it just be more kind of a mild bounce. I'm just going to chop some space out on the end so we get more of a sort of choppy sort of sound. Before I go too far on this, I'm going to duplicate this and just save one of these normal ones like this, turn it off because we'll probably end up using something like this, say, in a build. And then what we're working on here can just be our drop. So we can probably have the song start like something like this. And then we're going to have this go into what we're building. Then on the second time around, for the last part, I'm going to have it go just a little bit different on the end. And then I'm going to automate a reverb in those spaces like this. Let's pitch these up an octave. Then maybe the last one 24. Now let's record a vocal melody on top of this chord progression. So I took a few takes doing that. Now I'm just going to comp together our lead. And to do that, I'm just going through these take lanes, and then I'll select by clicking enter the best parts of each take. So I have one take that's really good front to back. Now we have this. I'm going to freeze and flatten this down to audio with the vocal processing on it so we can do a little bit more editing and not have to mess up our tuning. Throw OTT on this, and this is going to give us a little bit of that air. So if I have it up 100%, it's going to be super drastic like this. But if I turn it down, I'm going to cut the lows. All the way sounds super drastic, obviously, like I said, but down. And this is really just to help this cut through the mix. And then after that, we can add a de-esser just subtly to make sure we don't have too much harshness. Now I'm gonna add an eighth note echo to this using Echo Boy. And I'm adding a plate reverb after this because it's really short and tight, so it's not going to muddy our mix up, but we can still get sort of a spacey effect that I want. Duplicate this, then I'm going to freeze and flatten this one, turn this one off, and save it in case I want to do some things to it later. And now we can chop out some space from this one and do some cool effects. Like for example, we can go in, and here we can just reverse this. And we can delete space in our vocal lead to match our chords, and this just makes our drop feel a lot tighter. Maybe here we chop out in these spaces too. Maybe we pitch these up so they're escalating. It's like 12, 24, 36, maybe, let's see. Bring these down in volume a bit. And then on that part, I'm going to automate reverb in. Freeze and flatten that again. That way I can have that reverb automation that I just did, but I can still have that space like this. And maybe on this one, we stretch it so it's more drastic. Switch this to texture. Cool, so now to add our drums, I'm gonna first start with a drum rack, and this way I can just put all of our samples within this drum rack, and that's just gonna make programming a little bit faster. So first I'm gonna add some snares to our drum rack. And a tip for when you're picking out your samples, I like to listen to the samples while I'm playing the track because then I know if the sample sounds good with the track. Sometimes it doesn't really matter if the sample is cool on its own, it really only matters if it's cool with the track because ultimately that's what you're gonna be hearing it with. Add our snare pattern in. And I'm gonna layer this with a rim shot, and I'm gonna transpose a rim shot up. Then I'm gonna layer a pretty heavy reverb on our rim shot. Turn that volume down. Add our kick. Now I can click plus, and then I can record our kick pattern in without replacing our MIDI that exists here. Now I'm going to quantize this 100% to the 8th note, start and end. I'm going to try using a blip for our hi-hat. I don't know if I'm going to like this or not, but we're going to try it. I'm going to pitch this up. I'm going to put an EQ on this, then I'm going to turn the Q up a bunch, and this way I can just pick out a certain frequency. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of compression to the whole drum group. Now we need to add our bass, and for that I'm going to use an 808. So I'm just going to go in and find an 808 sample I like. That sounds good. I'm going to put that in a simpler, turn to one-shot mode, this way I can play our pattern in. Quantize this 100% to the 8th note. Then I'm going to go into our MIDI, click Command A, legato. This will make the note stretch to the next note. Then I'm going to go into our envelope, transpose. We're going to pitch bend this down 5. Do the sound up 5. And now our bass matches our chord progression and the way it pitch bends. This could be cool though to go up and then up. Maybe it just goes a little more speedy like this. Then I'm going to add a reverb to our 808, but we're only going to use it in certain sections, and we are going to low cut it so it doesn't muddy up our mix. So it's just going to be on these notes that are pitching up right here to match what our chord progression is doing. Cool, so that sounds dope. Now I'm going to freeze and flatten this down to audio. This way I can push this a little bit farther. So like on this last portion, I want it to go up more. So I'm going to take this audio and I'm going to pitch it up an octave because I couldn't do any more in the MIDI. So let's turn this to texture. And I'm also going to sidechain all of these elements to a ghost kick. So I'll insert a rim shot for that. take the MIDI from our kick, and we're only going to use the MIDI from our kick for our rim shot. So we'll call this ghost kick, turn it off because we don't need to hear it. It's only an impulse. Add a compressor to our 808, sidechain it to our ghost kick, and then you'll see every time this kick hits, we've got a gain reduction. And I can also add this to our lead. We maybe don't need the threshold to be down as much though. So you'll hear these are ducking. Maybe these can go down. We can also go into our bass and cut out certain portions similarly to how we did our vocal melody to the vocal chops, just to make it really tight. But not everywhere. I think just right here works good. We don't need to have it everywhere because bass is such a slow moving wave that if we have it too complex, it doesn't really come through well in the speakers. It just sounds muddy. I just want to hear, I think, a closed hi-hat kind of low underneath the mix. I just want to add one more vocal that kind of complements this lead vocal and sort of is like a harmony. So let's try recording that in. So this first ooh is cool. And then then again there. And then I think we just take this and pitch this one down. And then we can toss our side tuning on this. So we get a now I'm just going to duplicate our lead vocal and I'm going to copy it over here. I'm going to bandpass it a bit. And I'm going to do the same thing to our intro chords. Then I'm going to use the vertical bass preset from Meld, and I'm just going to record a bass line in. Cool, and so that's everything. Now let's just play the song from the top.